I would like to highlight one very important point illustrated by Walter in atomic suicide, and that is when we have centripetal motion beginning at the wave field boundary, it will wind a centripetal inward spiral until it reaches the apex of the wave. However, when it gets there, centripetal motion will change to centrifugal motion, and without changing direction, it will also unwind in exactly the same direction, this time centrifugally, so that this becomes the output and this is the input. And it's exactly the same winding. It's winding into the point and then winding out. When it gets here, it winds in again and then it winds out. This is the breathing cycle. It's in breathing in a centripetal fashion towards the apex, and then its radiative out breath goes this way. I'd like to talk a little bit about how centripetal motion becomes centrifugal motion and whether that is done in a linear fashion or not. His drawings tend to be a little bit confusing because sometimes he draws them as linear events, and then sometimes he tucks one of the motions inside the other, which is the correct way to go. In this example here, you can see that as the cones rotate, there appears to be a motion which is winding in towards the apex on this side, and then the same motion, once it gets to this point, becomes a winding out motion on this side. This particular motion is achieved when you wind directly in one go from this cone base to this cone base without changing direction. So we have a rotation. In this case, the cones are rotating towards me. And as you can see there, the cone on the left appears to be winding in towards the apex here in the center, while the one on the right appears to be winding away from the same apex. Now, this is indeed exactly what happens in nature. However, nature doesn't do it in this linear fashion. This is much more representative of nature's ways, where you have centripetal motion on the outside pushing inwards towards the central axis, and centrifugal motion on the inside trying to push out but being held in place by the dominant centripetal motion. You can see there the way the blue appears to be winding in from the cone base here to the apex, and the red simultaneously is unwinding from the apex up through the center of the cone, up through the center here and out. And it's doing that while the cones are rotating in the same direction. Now, these set of cones here are also rotating in the same direction. And likewise, you can see how the blue appears to be winding in and the red is simultaneously winding out. So obviously, if these two cones are winding in the same direction, we will get the impression that the blue is winding towards the common apex here at the center, and the radiative exhaust, or the red line, will be exhausting out through the cone base here and here. So now when I wind the coils this way, we can see that we have a generative blue spiral on this side and we have a generative red spiral on this side. They meet at the apex to form a body, incandescent light, or a sun. But simultaneously, while these are rotating, we can see that the exhaust red on this side is exhausting out through the through the cone base on this one, and the blue is exhausting out through the cone base on this side. Now, what's important is that there is no transfer of potential from this side to this side. It just looks that way. It looks like the blue is continuing here to wind into that side, but it's only an optical illusion. What's happening is the potential is winding up to here, to the internal plane of zero curvature, and it reflects back down to itself. This one is doing exactly the same thing. It's generating in this direction as far as here, and then it's reflecting back. But when they are in synchronized sequential motion, it appears as though there is a flow in both directions, as in from this cone base to this cone base, and likewise from this cone base to this cone base. But that is purely an illusion. So hopefully you can see there now on the right side, the red appears to be compressing and generating in towards that common apex, while on the left side, this side here, the blue is winding in towards that same apex, creating a unionized condition. But internally within both structures, we have the exhaust on the left side here exhausting out this way, and the exhaust on the right side here is shown in blue exhausting out this way. And so when you get this, it appears as though one is moving through the other, but no potential leaves its wave field.